Western civilization is moving closer to a point of irreconcilable, unstable equilibrium, as frighteningly increasing numbers of people trust nothing. Media, academia, and especially the governments are no longer held in high esteem. Regaining trust is often impossible after betrayal. However, transparency is essential to any healing process, and that is the essence of the Don Sullivan Show. Please listen to the team explore, probe, and debate cutting-edge science, technology, and computing. Play ball! So hello again to the vast and loyal audience of the Don Sullivan Show. And this is the show that we talk about all things under the umbrella of science, technology, and computing. And within that very wide paradigm of different subjects, we try to cover everything from pickleball. We've had episodes on that. We've had episodes of me running up and down mountains and canyons and having surgeries. We've had episodes of discussing really hardcore computing stuff. But today, we are delving into the medical arena. And in the medical arena, from a perspective of personal experience, and I have invited my dear friend, old friend, Stuart Klugler, who I'll allow him to introduce himself in a few minutes, who has been afflicted by benign brain tumors for the better part of the last 30 years. And we want to have, within the series of medicine, discussion with a number of different experts surrounding brain issues, particularly brain tumors, but not just brain tumors. And today we are going to discuss benign brain tumors, and particularly acoustic neuromas, which poor Stuart here has again been afflicted by them. Steve, why don't you start us off here? Stuart, say hello first. Just say hello, and I'll have you introduce yourself.
Hello from Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, Stuart, we're all Jersey boys here, so we might as well have Frankie Valli running around, but we're Jersey boys. But Stuart's from West Orange. I went to school in Newark, and Jersey Steve is here with us, but Stuart lives in Savannah, Georgia, which he will talk about as we move along. But for the moment, Jersey Steve, please start us off.
My pleasure, and greetings as always from the Garden State. So today's episode is brought to you by License Fortress, the industry's first and only software asset management firm to offer both a financial and legal guarantee at its highest level of service. Whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, or VMware, License Fortress helps organizations stay compliant, avoid audits, and save money. Learn more at licensefortress.com. And please support our producer by visiting axedinc.com. That's AXTINK.com. Subscribe to his YouTube channel and help support his efforts to create humorous animation, and coach a Jamaican bobsled team to victory, not by winning gold, but by earning respect, pride, and proving they belong on the Olympic stage. Back to you, Don.
Jeez, what wasn't there like a beer commercial about Jamaican bobsled team? Is he involved in this too now? This guy is just.
I'm not sure. I mean, it sounds like a heartwarming tale.
It's amazing. Okay,
they should make a movie about that.
Yeah, they should. Or did they? Did they? I think they did. We have to go look for that. We got to have Bill on to talk about exploits at some point. It's just amazing. But I will have to tell you that once again, I have to read as the lawyers want us to. It's amazing how many lawyers can actually bombard me with these reminders constantly before every episode. But all statements by the host and the guests on the Don Sullivan Show are the personal opinions of the host and the guests, who all agree that the following content is the property of Xanalytics LLC to be used publicly and exclusively on the Don Sullivan Show. And even though the audience can't see it, because this is a very purposeful audio-only podcast, everybody is nodding their heads, so we are good to go. Stuart Klugler, my friend, say hello and give us a little introduction to you.
Hello. I was born in Jersey City in 1960. Grew up in West Orange, went to college in Jersey Steve's hometown of Madison, New Jersey. Started working at AT&T in Piscataway And my boss asked me if I wanted to be on a crazy project, and I said sure. And I wound up being in Colorado in December of '86. Got involved with a lot of sports for athletes with disabilities. And 2001, diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma the day before Christmas. And it's been very interesting since then. I had radiation at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, roughly March of 2002, and didn't think anything of it. Had reports and met Don around 2008,
No,
9.
we were 97.
Okay, I maybe
Yeah,
after anyway,
yeah,
but
yeah.
at the time you helped me, I had issues like hydrocephalus and other cysts on the brain. So something that was benign wound up becoming a great challenge, and it was my brain. So I'm not thinking rational. And fortunately, Don tried to help me get through it. I opted for a shunt put in my head, which I did in Denver. And right after that, I moved to Savannah, where my mom was living. My marriage had fallen apart and wanted a place that didn't have snow every day, and moved here. And I've been here ever since. And fortunately, I met up with a great neurosurgeon, and he did one procedure here that has helped me quite a bit.
So, Stuart, tell us a little bit about an acoustic neuroma. It's one of many different types of benign brain tumors, which to a large extent, from what I understand, are really just fluid. That is, it's pretty hard to remove because of the location. But tell us generally about
Right.
what.
I'm not
Yeah.
so medically knowledgeable to give you great information, but I know it's also called schwannoma. It could be any size detected. Usually they're very small. They're about half a centimeter. Mine happened to be detected at 3.5 centimeters. It's a tumor on a nerve. I don't know exactly what nerve it is, but it's somewhere between the ear and the brain. And a lot of times it's treated by a snip, and you no longer hear. I opted for radiation, and unfortunately, radiation has long term effects, which it did for me.
So I think it's called acoustic, or it's within that
Yes, it's called an
variety.
acoustic neuroma.
Yeah, they're acoustic because they are in proximity to your audio function, meaning your ear. And you had an interest in people with hearing deficiencies long before that. It seems like it probably wasn't a coincidence that it was afflicting you well prior to you even discovering this.
Right. They grow very slowly. And so something that's slow really didn't impact me. Maybe each day something, I mean, they grow maybe 1 millimeter a year, if that much. And didn't even know I had anything like that. When
They are benign, but they are
exactly.
benign in the sense that they're not malignant. They obviously cause a lot of difficulties.
Right.
You had some
Benign
hearing.
though, but if they grow too big, it could push against your brainstem and cause a lot of problems.
That
Yeah,
makes
and
sense. Don, for our listeners that may not know, do you want to talk about the difference between benign and malignant?
yeah, benign meaning, as I kind of flippantly said, and I meant it that way, not malignant, meaning not growing to the point of metastasis, meaning that the cells wind up moving into other tissues, and obviously in the brain, that's devastating, and or the bloodstream, which can then get into the lymph nodes. We've heard just today that New York Yankee Bernie Williams has prostate cancer on stage level 3, which means it's in his lymph nodes. The cells have been spotted in his lymph nodes, which means they can transport to anywhere else in the body. and that means it's malignant. There's a metastasis involved, and it is going to spread and be very, very difficult to control. Is the reason for the poison of chemotherapy as opposed to the radiation, such as what Stuart chose. Radiation will kill or stop the growth of or minimize the growth of any tumor. The interesting part of any cells that are growing out of control, if you want to call them, if they're cancer cells or otherwise, they can all be killed if you raise the body temperature high enough, and particularly radiation, when directed, does that, among other things. And Stuart chose to do that, and for the most part, Stuart, there were a number of them, right? And they were all arrested in terms of their growth in your case.
Yes, mine was 3.5 centimeters. Every MRI I had since that, there was no additional growth.
And folks, that's an inch. I've seen, Stuart and I did go around to a lot of doctors at that point in that early 2000 time frame, and I got a chance to help Stuart analyze the approaches, and these things were trivial to see on an MRI, and they were scary. But and again, how many did they have in your case? It was about 3 or 4, if I remember.
Well, that was after the radiation. Initially, I had just the one acoustic neuroma. They're really legions or cysts, I think, because I had
Yeah,
so even though a cyst may be benign, it could cause major problems.
yeah. Certainly, if it opens up, it's not clear what kind of fluid is in there or whether or not the fluid is infected. Plus, as you said, just the pressure alone
Yeah, it's not supposed to
obviously
be
affected
there.
Stewart's hearing and had probably affected it before that, before the recognition of this particular tumor. So,
Stu, how did you figure out, or how did you learn that you had these brain tumors?
Well, at
Was it?
first, I always used the phone in my left ear. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't I had to switch to the right ear. And I asked a good friend of mine who's an audiologist, what should I do? And he said, get a hearing test. And I went for a hearing test, and basically I only had 30% word recognition. So it was pretty
Oh
bad.
yeah. So at that point, they recommended you go to a specialist and get some X-rays.
Yeah, the also this is 2001, 2002 time frame. MRIs were available, but it wasn't like their first choice. So I went and had some kind of brain response test, which showed something was wrong. And then eventually I had an MRI. And the MRI showed the 3.5 centimeter acoustic neuroma.
really, it's pretty breathtaking, and I have it very stark in my memory, even now 25 years ago, for that how obvious it was to see and how easy it was to, usually you need when it comes to an MRI, X-rays are easy with broken bones. You see a white line in the bone, but with MRIs, you need to really know what you're looking for. With this, you didn't. It was just right there, and it was very unclear at that point where it was really going. And they had, if I remember correctly, Stuart, they had um, determined what it was. That is an acoustic neuroma, but it still there seemed to be dire possibilities. Unfortunately, it turned out to be manageable.
That's not something they can typically operate on. That's
No,
correct,
they
right? They wouldn't.
can.
They can.
I made the choice back then that unfortunately, when I worked in New Jersey at AT&T, a coworker had a brain tumor. I don't remember if it was malignant or not, and he opted for surgery. And at one of the surgeries, the doctors left the gauze in his brain,
Oh,
and
geez. So that didn't give you a very
so he
good
needed another
impression.
procedure just to get the gauze out. And me remembering this said, I don't really want to have surgery.
You don't want to go that route.
Actually, when I wrote down some notes, I wrote size matters because the bigger they get, the harder it is to have surgery. So An acoustic neuroma most commonly is probably a half a centimeter, and even though radiation works quite well, so does surgery.
Gotcha,
Three and a
gotcha.
half is it to this day? Do you know still about the same size, or
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little smaller because of it. It may have increased initially because of the radiation, but I think in size wise, it's
but
never
you
surpassed 3
also
point.
am I correct? There's also a few others, right? There's not just one.
Well, the acoustic neuroma was the initial issue. By having fractionated stereotactic radiation, it created other complexities, which are cysts or things like that. So really, there's the one initial acoustic neuroma that went wild with the radiation. So I got a lot of other things, and some of the MRIs show things where the doctors can't even get to. I don't know if you remember, we were at St. Anthony's and they wanted to move my brain and to get at it, and I just wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, this all doesn't sound great, and I will ask you why. Okay, you made a choice to go one direction, which I think is wise. You're doing pretty well right now in your mid 60s, so that you couldn't have wanted more in that regard. But what are the what treatments are available? And I ask this because I am going to, as the vast audience of the Don Sullivan Show knows, we are going to do a whole series on prostate cancers, and not just referencing Bernie Williams, but myself. I don't have prostate cancer, but I'm going to have prostate surgery in the next few months. And there's a lot of options, and it's hard to choose. So, what options were there for you, and
What's
what
crazy
made
is
you
one of the
choose?
options is wait and see. They grow so slowly that for some people, they get older and die before they even need the
Yeah, but
surgery.
three and a
So,
half centimeters is an inch. That's, and I keep saying this, and it was easy to see, but it's huge, and it
oh
had to
yeah,
be.
no, so I didn't opt for doing nothing, wait and see. I jumped at what I had to do, and unfortunately, I went through websites. I read a lot of stuff. I found this procedure at Johns Hopkins, which is fractionated. There's also, besides surgery, something called gamma knife, which is shooting all the radiation all at once. And they felt that the size of mine, being 3.5, was way too much radiation. So I started.
Isn't that what made people into the Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner and all?
That's
Is
true.
that,
Yeah,
I mean,
you get very
you could have become a
temperamental.
Right.
Marvel hero. I don't mean to be flippant about it, but it sounds like you could have become a Marvel hero there, Stu. I don't know.
This is interesting to me, though. So there are different types of radiation. So it sounds like the type of radiation you got, you have like appointments where you go there, you get it for a little bit, and then
Yeah, I
the
went for.
next week or something. Is that how it works?
Went three. I was there in Baltimore for 3 weeks. The first week I had radiation on Thursday and Friday, possibly Wednesday. I don't remember. The second week I was there for the entire week, and the third week I was there for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Okay,
So
so they did it daily. So it was like a daily dose of
yeah, it was daily,
radiation.
like 10 days. Ironically, the first Wednesday of the second week was the first time I had 3 straight days, and it knocked me out. I
I was
went
going
to
to
bed
ask,
like,
what's that like? Like you're in a room, kind of like you lie down, they put a machine next to your head. Is it
yeah, I'm wearing
uncomfortable?
a mask like Hannibal Lecter, so
Oh, so
it was kind of strange. I mean,
to shield you from the radiation?
yes, yes.
Gotcha.
So when I go to the dentist and they say you wear this, you may get too much radiation. I think I've already had my fill.
Okay, so they made you kind of wear a lead mask type thing, and
Exactly.
does it hurt when you get radiation?
No,
No, you don't really
the
feel
only
anything.
thing was I just got tired on that second week.
Gotcha. Does it make you tired, or it was just boring, kind
Yes,
of
it does.
laying?
It,
Oh,
it
it
made
does.
me
Okay.
tired.
Was the stress that made you tired, or was it the
No, I think
radiation?
it was having 3 straight days of it. I don't know exactly my dosage, but it wasn't tiny.
Gotcha. So there are different dosages that they can give folks depending
Exactly.
on the. Gotcha. Okay.
So, what other treatments were available that you chose other than just straight surgery to drain it? I guess what
I
else was
only know
available?
4 things. Don't do anything, which is wait and see. Having Gamma Knife, which is all at once, which St. Anthony's in Denver was doing. The other is surgery. Actually, there's a fifth thing, and a neurologist in Denver recommended it, which is to do partial surgery and then do radiation. And he wound up probably being playing Monday morning quarterback. He probably gave me the right advice. Unfortunately, I'm thinking 3.5 centimeters. I don't want surgery.
So, the surgery in this case, I mean, everything's a mass, right? But in this case, it was a pocket of fluid. Would the surgery have been, or is the surgery in this case, a relatively minor incision with the intention of draining it? Or is there actual, because yours, if I remember correctly, was pretty deeply embedded and near
Right.
your ear.
I don't know surgery that well, but I think it's sort of opening it up, and somehow they're cutting at this nerve.
Well, that's never good.
Well, and if it's like a cyst, they usually have it's like a pouch. There's an
Yeah,
outer that's keeping the fluid
and
in that
sometimes
you
they
have to
can
get rid
drain
of.
it.
They can drain them.
Ironically,
Yeah.
when I moved to Savannah, the doctor who I saw happened to run into today realized that there's a lot of babies that have something similar. And so they did a procedure where they went behind my neck and basically, I don't know, like the equivalent of popping a zit, they were able to
Yeah,
excrete it.
it's an inch
Interesting.
wide in your brain. How?
Right in the back.
Now, did you, aside from the auditory issues, were there any other symptoms at
Oh,
all?
definitely. Balance issues. The first time after having the FSR where I knew I had problems, the doctor asked me to put my thumb to my middle finger, and I could do it much faster with my left hand, which was controlled by the right side of my brain, versus the left side where I had all the radiation. It was really slow and devastating.
Oh, okay. So this isn't just you're not going to be able to hear well in one ear. It affects balance. That's so. You also mentioned that there were some side effects to the radiation.
Right, which is
created.
hydrocephalus, which is you have cerebral fluid that normally drains right. And
Yeah,
because of this FSR, I had blockage.
in that area or other areas.
I don't exactly know the location, but that's why I had a shunt put in before I left Colorado.
So thinking symptomatically, we played a lot. We used to throw a lot, play catch a
Right.
lot. We played basketball a lot. Um, should you have been driving, you think, in retrospect?
It's amazing how the brain handles the hills in Colorado. I probably shouldn't have. One time I had to go to Colorado Springs and I didn't trust myself, but I trusted my car in cruise control. I don't know.
I know
And this
it
was
got,
before autopilot. But
yeah,
No, I was able to put my car at that time. I had a Chevy Blaze. No, I don't.
in
Trying to
cruise
think.
versus auto driving mode. He's referring to Musk
Right.
stuff and all that. It's um, and I obviously, when you got to a point where this had become a partial crisis, and it's one of the reasons why I was helping out or driving you around, you didn't feel comfortable. But I'm even
Right.
thinking at the beginning of all of this,
No, I think for me, I mean, I didn't know this was going on. This is
no, I know.
Yeah,
So it's
I
not.
think I was fine driving at that time. After having radiation, no, I would say no.
Did you have pain? Were there migraines or any other kind of headaches?
Not really pain, but I would wake up a lot at like 2:30 in the morning and not go to sleep. I mean, it would all of a sudden wake me up. Uh, dizzy issues. I lived in a house that had stairs. I had to hold on to the railing. So it was psychological pain having to deal with all this stuff, but I didn't really have pain. Unfortunately, I have a good threshold of pain. I was originally coaching some deaf players, and I walked up to them, and I got hit by an aluminum bat, and I kind of went close to my knees and got up and thought I was okay. And who knows, whether or not there was brain injury at that point.
Yeah, you think that could have been, who knows, but it could have been
Right.
an initial factor in the causation. Because that's what I was going to ask you next. What do you think? Do you have any theories or any evidence as to how this emerged? And I want to ask that in the context of this more ominous question. You didn't know about this for quite a long time. Do you think?
I got completely forgot about the bat issue. I think there's some kind of correlation.
Do you think there are a lot of people walking around out there with these things?
Well, they say statistically 1 in 100,000. So it's amazing. After I had it, I was involved with support groups, and all of a sudden you meet more people than you thought you would.
So I'm in a situation, and again, to the vast audience of the Don Sullivan Show, we will have many shows on this, and over the years, hopefully, I have a spinal injury, and the spinal injury is underneath my vertebrae. It's actually a spinal injury, not a back injury, and it's been a problem for many, many months, and apparently it's been a problem for a long time because the injury happened sometime between 1970 and 2022, as best they can tell. But it basically has resulted in is scar tissue developing right on my spine itself. And I when I was a kid, obviously, Stuart, you know this well, growing up in northern New Jersey, and I had lots and lots of encounters that were not friendly. And I hit the ground a lot. I played a lot of sports, obviously a lot, and hit the ground and had a lot of fights. And I was hiking in mountains. So a lot of things happened. There's a lot of possibilities. But every time I look at a football game, every time I see a running back run who gets hit 7 times by some 270-pound guy running a 4.40, I think to myself, how does this, whatever's going on with me, not happen every single time to them? How do they not have, and so...
Some of them don't move well later in life.
Well, yeah, they don't, but I asked my spinal neurosurgeon, who I'm working on with this, who has recommended that I wait indefinitely to have any type of the draconian surgeries on this thing. I said, how come these football players don't have them? And he says, well, we think they do. Or she said it was the PA who said that. We think they do. We think there's a lot of people walking around out there with these types of injuries that are not properly diagnosed and just simply don't realize it. And they have symptoms or they have serious neurological effects they don't know. And in the same respect, Stuart, do you think from your interaction with your surgeon, and again, I'd love to have that doctor on to talk about this, or any of your doctors who have dealt with this on the show, do you think there's a lot more people that have these things that don't realize it?
I think so. I mean, went for a hearing test, and all of a sudden I have 30% word recognition. I mean, there was a time, and I didn't know it. It went from 100% in my mind to 30%.
Now, is that in both ears or just the one?
Just one. My left ear is the bad ear. So, for many years before that, I thought everything was okay. Maybe if I had gone for a hearing test, they would have detected it sooner. But who knows? I definitely think there are more people walking around with acoustic neuromas than they realize.
Well, I'm thinking of these benign brain tumors and cysts in general.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would make some snide comments.
I know somebody personally who's been having balance issues, and they found a cyst on her brain.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, and sometimes if something deteriorates a minuscule amount slowly over time, you don't necessarily notice it as an issue because you get used to things and you kind of compensate. If it's a drastic change overnight, I think that would be something you would pick up on really quick. But maybe until it reaches a certain point, if it's minimal, then yeah, it doesn't have the same effect.
So, Stuart, how have you managed these symptoms, especially now that you knew them? I talking to you. You seem to be about the same person that I knew 30 years ago. I mean, we're all aged, of course, significantly. How have you managed these issues over the last 30 years? And what advice do you give for other people that are
The
just
last
encountering
10
them?
years I suffered with the Giant fans, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
I'm
you
right
know
here
what?
with you on that, Stu.
And Steve is happy with Harbaugh. I was hoping for
I
Belichick, but
am. Oh, I didn't think that was ever going to happen. Whatever. But
he could bring
hey,
his
listen,
girlfriend. That was fine. Napoleon could do whatever he wanted.
if Saint Tommy Coughlin, if Harbaugh's good enough for him, then that's fine.
Yeah, well,
And in
okay.
this house, that's all that's it.
I wanted Napoleon. So,
I think one of the things for me that was helpful is having a neurosurgeon locally. I didn't have that in Denver, which was my mistake. I went to a general practitioner, and then they eventually recommended me to an ear, nose, and throat. And then eventually, somehow an audiologist got thrown in a loop, and then they had me go see some. So I didn't really have somebody at my beck and call, and I think I have that in Savannah, which worked out well. So that was one thing to get by. The other thing is to keep yourself busy. I've written some books. I'm better at writing books than reading books, which is kind of weird. I'm in an organization called Life, Living Independently for Everyone,
I know I got
which,
mentioned in one.
I'm sorry?
I remember, Stu. I got mentioned in one.
Okay. You remember better than I. Unfortunately, I have some memory issues. It may be 65 years old, but like the other night, my neighbor texts me saying, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Sure, fine." And then he texts me the next morning and he says, "Your garage door is open and the light is on." So I think one of
Well,
the ways to
as long as your keys weren't in the refrigerator. Okay, I shouldn't be joking about
I've
that. I'm
I've done that.
sorry.
I've done that before, to be
yeah.
perfectly
So I
honest.
Okay, well, we
mean,
need to talk about
Not
that
the
later,
refrigerator.
Steve.
No. The driveway, leaving the garage door open.
Yeah, well.
I thought it was closed, but
You get
right.
you're out there in Morristown. You're going to get lots of friendly animals in the winter coming in to take
well, the
advantage of
bears
your
are
accommodations.
hibernating.
Yeah.
The bears are hibernating right now, but when they're not, they're around. New Jersey is one of the
They ain't
biggest
the
bear
only things
states.
that are issues. So
Well, that is true. That is true.
go ahead, Stuart.
Fortunately, I live a mile away from my gym that I go to. So there really is an excuse that, oh, I don't feel like going to the gym and things. So that's helped
That's
quite
good.
a bit. The procedure that was done in Savannah, roughly 2012, really helped me mentally and balance wise. I could only do the elliptical if I was holding on back then, and now I can do it without holding on.
What?
So,
You mean you can do it without holding on? Just asking.
correct.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. Um, maybe I
And when
shouldn't
you
be
say the
calling
procedure in Savannah, you're referring to the
the
radiation
radiation.
procedure, the
No,
fractal.
I'm referring to I had to when I met a
You had a
neurosurgeon.
follow up procedure.
Right, they went through the back of my head to get at these cysts and stuff. Which I think is more common with infants. So fortunately, there
Okay.
was a neurosurgeon who specialized in infants that he consulted with, and they thought I'd be a good candidate.
Gotcha. So initially you got the radiation, but then when you moved to Savannah, or did you move there? Yeah, you mentioned you moved there. Your mom's there, but there was a specialist there as well that you could work with, and they did this. It sounds like it's not as invasive, this surgical procedure.
Yeah, I wasn't awake, so I don't know, but I would equate it to popping a zit.
Okay, gotcha. That's interesting.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
6 inches inside your head. God.
Well,
Stuart, how are you doing now?
Today?
Well, at 65 with this affliction. So
I'm
yes,
okay.
today.
I'm okay. I'm very hard on myself at the same time. Fortunately, I'm with organization. I'm with Toastmasters. I started charting. I like basketball, as Don knows, and I chart possessions, whether the ball is reversed or not, if there's a turnover. And the coach he coached at Savannah State, and he's really into it. So it's given me a lot of satisfaction.
that's great. You mentioned
Yeah.
before staying busy is really helpful.
Oh,
For anyone else
exactly.
that's facing kind of an unexpected, whether it's a benign tumor or medically significant or malignant, who's kind of going through a similar experience, is there anything else you recommend other than staying
Well,
busy?
Don could vouch for this. I mean, when he was driving him, I felt sorry for myself, which is very hard to overcome, especially when it's your brain, which controls basically everything. And I think in Savannah, unfortunately, my mom passed away December of 2025, and she didn't give
Oh, I'm
me. She's
sorry.
a former school teacher. She's from Bayonne, and no nonsense. And she didn't give me time to feel sorry for myself. So I owe her a lot of credit.
Yeah,
I will
it
attest
sounds
to
like
it.
just yeah, it sounds like it would be easy to feel sorry for yourself in that scenario, but you've
Yeah,
got to
it
find
doesn't
ways
get
to
you
stay
anything.
positive. Yeah, you've got to find a way to overcome that.
Yeah, or at least make the most out of each day.
Oh, exactly.
All at bats are situational. I'll say it earlier.
You're getting it in early, but that is true,
I'll
Don.
say it again later, but it's a perfect teachable moment for the motto of the Don Sullivan Show.
Except I'm a Horace Clark type person. I'm just for singles as opposed to a Aaron Judge.
For those of you who don't know, Horace Clark has the ignominy of having replaced Mickey Mantle in the early 60s and having found himself on Sports Illustrated with the caption, "What happened to the Yankees?"
Well, that is the perfect analogy to bring onto the Don Sullivan Show, Don. I mean, it doesn't get too much better than that.
No, it doesn't. So, have we missed anything, Stu?
No, I think you did a good job covering it. I would just reemphasize that you really have to have a doctor with you. I made the biggest mistake of going to Johns Hopkins because it was so reputable, but it's kind of ironic when they were looking at MRIs, they were just looking at that area that was affected. They didn't look at the whole brain. You bring your car in for an oil change, and they look at the not only where they're treating the oil, but they're looking at air filters, looking at the whole engine. And you really need a doctor to go through it. I think my general practitioner would just file the MRI. Fortunately, the radiologist caught a lot of things, but really have your own, whether it's a neurologist or neurosurgeon in your court.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stuart Klugler. Thank you for
You're quite welcome.
Thank you for being part of this. And as I said, we'd love to have one of your surgeons on to talk to us about this stuff in more details. We're going to have a whole series. We have a whole series on medicine in general, and we want to have series on brain tumors. And you were the start of this series. And if you have somebody that would love to talk to us and talk to the audience, we'd love to have them come on.
Yeah, I think if you talk Alabama football, he could be on your show.
We can do that. Okay, he can talk about Nick Saban and wishing he was there all he wants. All right,
that can be arranged.
Yeah,
or Joe Willie Namath.
Yeah, we could talk about Ken Stabler too, all right? And Bear Bryant or Nick Saban being number one, and we could talk about all those things. But I want to talk about brain tumors, so that's mostly. And talk about why James Andrews is in Alabama. I've never understood that.
I want to share something with Steve. I don't need to be on or whatever, but I think when Don was going through my MRIs, his doctor friend was amazing. He couldn't understand as much as Don did.
Oh, really? Well, Don is very smart. He comes across as kind of a hard-nosed New Jersey guy.
Hey, you guys know nothing about talking. Stop it. Knock it off. I don't want to hear about me. All right, we're done with the show. Stuart, you're good, right?
So,
all right.
So it's been a pleasure having you on, Stuart.
No, Don was fantastic in phase 2 of this treatment.
He's a good egg, as we say. Good egg.
Well, bring me your doctor on. We need to talk to the doctor about brain tumor.
Oh yeah, I'll see him again in February.
All right. Thanks a lot, Stu.
All right.
Steve, you want to take us out?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, Stu. And listeners, please, we look forward to you joining us for future episodes.
So, folks, no matter where we are in life, whether or not you're in a medical crisis or you're just running through wildflowers, whether or not you're climbing a mountain or you're going down into the depths of a canyon, whether you're talking about artificial intelligence or the future of quantum computing, it all comes down to one thing, in my opinion. And understanding that one opinion, or understanding that one paradigm, that one way of looking at things, that everything in life is determined in the context of the situation that you're in. In other words, all at-bats are situational. See you, everyone.